le kako. E ke akua mana loa, mahalo ia oe no ke ia ramen. E hui kala mai I nā hewa, a e alaka I mai I ke ala pono. I kū ke ola I ka moku. Makai noa o ka makua, ke keiki a me ka uhane he molele. Amen. Oia, aloha hi kako. Oh, mai kai no I ka ike ana ia oko ka oko maumaka, mahalo nui loa no ke a koko mai nei o ka ohana, ma Kaʻiwakīloumoku hale. O wau no o snowbird ko nani o Kaʻiwakīloumoku a ke ia o laiana kanoa ua make nui mako e aloha ku ia o ko nole na aloha. It's so lovely to have you folks with us this evening. We're just really excited for this evening and to see all of you here. You've come to be part of our Lāhui Rising event. And this event was designed to create a respectful, safe, and enriching learning space for students, staff, alumni, families, and our community to hear and honor different voices and perspectives on matters of Hawaiian interest for the purpose of education. And so, why? Why should we gather for events such as this? So that we can strengthen then our native Hawaiian identity amongst all of our ohana, and especially our ohana from Kamehameha schools. But we're so happy that we can have the lehu lehu come and join us as well. Can I see a show of hands? How many of you are affiliated with Kamehameha that's here this evening? Oh, nani, mahalo. Which means everybody else. You guys are all lehu lehu. Raise your hands. If you're just joining us, mahalo so much. And hopefully you heard because of our social media, maybe you might have seen the flyers, maybe somebody you know told you, hey, you better come check this out. And so we're thankful that you can all be here. And again, reiterating that this is a safe space for us to go ahead to take in some information so it can broaden, elevate, and expand our ike. That's the most important thing that we can do, so that we can become informed about the things that affect us here in our own home. Tonight, I'm going to leave the introductions of our guests to our facilitator and moderator. Tonight's facilitator and moderator is going to be Laiana Kanoa. He works here at Kamehameha through Ho'okahua, and part of our work is to create these amazing opportunities for Lāhui Rising events. And so without, before we get into Laiana coming up, if anybody has something to ho'okupu or to give, we'll do an olilei right now, and this would be the time to do it. You probably want to know where everything is to Yanis Hale. Okay. Right before they're coming up. We have lua on this side, 2 for the wahine and then 1 for the kaane. We have lua on this side of the building as well. Water fountains outside. We will have some refreshments. We'll open those up in a little bit so that you guys can go ahead and have some quick fixes of sugar to keep you going, because most of us probably had a long day already. We also want to welcome you on behalf of the manager of Kaʻiwakīloumoku Hale, and her name is Auntie Jamie Fong. And so, no kahale, everyone, and welcome Laiana Kanoa Wong.
Elina me ke aloha aina. Aloha aina. Elina me ke aloha aina e na hoa maka mai ka ikina kala puka i hae hae ai kaulana kala i ka pai o pui ke kai I ea mai ana, mani hoa makamole mai o le hua aloha kākou. It is such an honor to have each and every one of you here in Kaʻiwakīloumoku. Can we all say Kaʻiwakīloumoku? The Ōiwi, we're going to make the Iwa wings. The Iwa is the Iwa bird. And Kamehameha's inoa kapakapa was Kaʻiwakīloumoku. And he was given this inoa by Chiefess Ululani. And we are in Ululani Hale. Ululani is a mo'i wahine of Hilo region. And she gave this name almost as a challenge, but also as an affirmation to Kamehameha Ekahi and who he was. And he was a unifier. He was one like the Iwa. If you guys are familiar with Iwa, the Iwa cannot really get their feathers really wet. So how do they eat fish? They have to attack and nail the other bird, maikai. They have to nail the other manu who has the i'a, and once that manu gets hit, it'll drop the i'a, and the iwa will swoop it up. So Kaʻiwakīloumoku was almost like that kauna name given to Kamehameha. As we are strengthening as a Lāhui, becoming stronger, this is the time for us to seize the moments, to use the momentum of this aloha aina feeling that we have in our na'au. There's a beautiful olelo eo from Joseph Navahi. He says, "O ke aloha aina, o ye ka ume mageneti I loko ka pu'u vai o ka Lāhui." Aloha aina is the magnetic pull in the heart of the nation. That is the pull that we are all feeling right now with all of the energies of aloha aina taking place in Mauna Kea, Punana Niho, Kahuku, Ihu Matao, all over the Honua, Brazil, everywhere. There's this aloha aina movement drawing everybody. And so as a ohana ho'okahua, we felt like this was the time to go deep, to add to the hunger, to help satiate our people who are hungry for knowledge and ike, and to bring in scholars who have done amazing work for our Lāhui. It truly is an honor to introduce two personal scholarly heroes that I have been blessed with in my life as a Kanaka Hana'awa to a Haumana Kaiapuni, to have these two leaders join us this evening. And I'd like to welcome each of them as fancy and formally as I could. So please allow me to welcome Dr. Jonathan K. Kamakawiwo Ole Osorio is Dean of Hawaii Nui Akea School of Hawaiian Knowledge. Kumu John received his PhD in history from the University of Hawaii. And at Kamaka Kuokalani, where I was a student and many of us in here were students, he has developed and taught classes in history, literature, law as culture, music as historical texts, and research methodologies for and from Ōiwi perspectives. His recent publications include The Value of Hawaii, Knowing the Past and Shaping Our Future, which he co-edited and authored, and also Dismembering Lāhui, A History of the Hawaiian Nation to 1887. Kumu John is a personal hero for many of us in the Aloha Aina movement, and his leo, when you hear his mele, we instantly recognize and are drawn back to the hero George Helm, to the Aloha Aina movements of the 70s, and he still looks like he's 20-something. I'm always amazed at that. As a composer since the 70s, he is a Nahoku Hanohana Award winner, as well as an amazing author, but really he is a father who loves his keiki and his ohana, and he raised his family in the Aloha Aina movement, connecting them and inspiring them, and they all have gone on their own amazing pathways and are serving our Lāhui in such beautiful ways. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Jonathan, or Kumu John, Kamakawiwo Ole Osorio. Unless you want to use kamanas. Mahalo Kumu John. Kumu John and my father go way back. they battle constantly at UH to fight for every inch for Ōiwi Hawaii. And so we really want to mahalo kumu. So pai lima again for Dr. John. Our next guest presenter, former quarterback at Kamanamaikalani Schools. He's an associate professor at the Center of Hawaiian Studies in the Hui Aina Momona program at our University of Hawaii Manoa, with a joint appointment in the Richardson School of Law in the Hawaii Nui Akea School of Hawaiian Knowledge. Our hoa, Dr. Kamanamaikalani Beamer, has research on government, land tenure, and Hawaiian resource management, as well as his prior work here at Kamehameha Schools as our Aina-based education director with Uncle Neil Hannes and our team leading the educational movement around Aina. He's also a huge part of the First Nations Futures program, along with Kumu John and Uncle Neil, that provided opportunities to so many Ōiwi to step up in our leadership game and will take us to Stanford to gain a deeper dive with other Ōiwi scholars from Aotearoa and Alaska. Kamana is also a mahi'ai kalo. He grows kalo on his ohana lands in Waimea, where he raises his beautiful ohana. And Kamana is also an author, the winner of the Samuel Manaiakalani Kamakau Book of the Year, No Mako Kamana, a book that I believe every single student, or every Kanaka Hawaii, or every Kanaka Aloha Aina should read. These scholars' works are the works that I believe our Hamana should read, and the foundational ike that we build upon. Anybody here got to go to Ōiwi, the play? Anybody? Wow, pai lima for Ōiwi. These are two of our star actors. We also have many of the actors in the audience. In the play, the puke are the kahua, the foundation. Okay, kahua mamua mahope ke kukulu. First we set the foundation and then we build. Because of the works of Kamana and Dr. Osorio, we have these resources. And No Mako Kamana is a book that really dives into Ōiwi Agency and Ōiwi optics, looking at our history from an Ōiwi lens. Kamana was also a band member of the Hui Kamau, lead singer of many Ava drinking nights at Halenoa. And Kamana has one of my favorite quotes around Ava. He says, if you drink Ava, mai kai, it's good to drink Ava. And if you don't drink Ava, mai kai, it's good to drink Ava. Please welcome Dr. Kamanamaikalani Beamer. So our presenters will both share presentations about Ōiwi Agency and examples of Kanaka pathways towards leadership. Following each presenter, we'll open the mic and invite you all to ask questions. But before we do that, and before we dive into their presentations, let's look at this phrase, Ōiwi Agency. We'll start with the word Ōiwi. E ho'opili mai, Ōiwi. One more time, Ōiwi. I want you to feel it in your bones, in your iwi. Ōiwi. Ōiwi is native. It's like native son or daughter. Ōiwi, the root word of that is iwi, like our bones. We have so many words that remind us of our bones, but iwi, hula iwi, Ōiwi is our native perspectives. We also have, well, I'm not the best at, but let's look at the word agency. Everybody say agency. Hey, according to Webster, agency is defined as a person or thing through which power is exerted or an end is achieved. It is also an action or means to produce a particular effect. So to us, Ōiwi Agency is native action used to create change. These two scholars have dove into that in so many ways in their research, in their music, in their families, and have shared that with our Lāhui on so many different levels. And we're so grateful to have them here tonight to share with us a little bit more. And so as they present, think about good questions that would help you and your ohana. How can we become better Ōiwi agents? How can we be the leaders and develop our young keiki or Haumana to be these leaders that we want to step up and take that Ōiwi Agency and lead Hawaii to the better future that we know we can create? So without further ado, please give us a huge hand for Dr. Kamanamaikalani Beamer and Dr. Jonathan Taylor. Maybe I have to press it. So point it to me and I'll press it.
That's funny. Hi. Aloha ahi na Ōiwi na hoa makamaka. It's good to be here tonight. I don't know what that is. Okay, let's try that. You know what else agency is? Not according to Webster. It's air. You think about it, right? If agency is the ability, having the ability, the will, the skills, and the opportunity to exercise control over your life, that is how we, since the 19th century, have defined air, sovereignty. Having that. And so I'm going to begin tonight by talking about three different kinds of pathways I think that we can observe, and especially and how these paths have demonstrated themselves over the last 40 or 50 years. And I choose that time period because it's relevant to me. I graduated from high school 50 years ago in the class of 1969. And I'm not going to tell my story, but in telling the story of the people who have brought us to this place, I am talking about how Kanaka, how Ōiwi, over the past 50 years, have gradually built the foundation and the meat around that foundation that have made us, have made us sovereign. Now you might say, well, we're not sovereign, we don't have our own government, we don't have even a federally recognized government, and there's no sign that the United States is leaving anytime soon. But I didn't define air as having your own government. I defined air as having the will, the ability, the skills, and the opportunity to exercise control over our own lives. And I believe that we have actually achieved that in 2019. But I don't have the ability to do this. I want to start with what I think of as, so that word emau, which means, it can mean to preserve, it means to continue. It means to, in my mind, it means to dredge back into our own history, our own traditions, and allow them to come through our lives, allow them to become a part of our life, and to expect that they will continue to be a part of our life into the future. When I graduated from high school, I didn't even know what emau meant. And more than that, there wasn't really very much a part of my consciousness that even thought of myself as much of a Hawaiian. I graduated from this school. I knew all the only Hawaiian songs I knew practically were the ones that we learned at song contests. That actually happens to be true. And I had dreams and thoughts about doing all kinds of things that had to do with social justice. It was 69, Vietnam, civil rights. And I was that kind of person. But a lot of things changed around me. And they were being changed by people who were a lot like me. They didn't necessarily go to Kamehameha. Well, some of them did. But they didn't know the language either. What was really interesting in the mid to late 1960s was the way so many of our people began to argue that what had happened to our people was a crime, and that the United States was responsible for that crime. The taking of our country and the oppression of our language and our customs and culture were things that had turned us into a people with very few expectations, very little hope. And it seemed like we were almost losing the will to exist. There was a historian who came from New York in 1962, wrote a book called Hawaii Pono, in which he said, Hawaiians are disappearing. We're being basically absorbed into everybody else. And it's a shame, because we made it possible for this great state to happen, but there was no question that we were disappearing. And so when the struggle to assert ourselves begins in the mid to late 1960s, there's almost no language for it. We're not using our own terms, and the only thing that we can talk about are issues of like justice, social justice, reparation, repair, right? The United States they should give us something back. If you think about one of the early kinds of movements in this area was ALOHA, Aboriginal Landowners of Hawaiian Ancestry. And their big thing was, let's push for a reparations bill from the United States for the crimes that have been committed against us and what they have done to us, making us basically poverty-stricken in our own land, uneducated, ill, sick, dying. Let's make them pay for this. And the only way that we could really understand our Hawaiianness was, first, it was race. We were Hawaiian blood, and that's what made us Hawaiian. And secondly, we were screwed. Sorry to use that language, but that's what it was. Those two things together made this movement, gave it wings. And it was something that we could advocate for. There was, even in this though, a sense that we were not going to die easy. If we could get reparations, we could get a better education, we could send our children to college, we could increase their incomes, we could put them in better positions, we could pay for health care, we could live longer, right? Those were the kinds of aspirations that adult Hawaiians had in the 1960s. And so there was a sense of hope, a sense of persistence of us as a people, as a race, not necessarily as a culture. If people were talking about Hawaiian language then and the revival of that, they were few and far between. But there was a sense that we could move forward, that we could survive. That was the hope. Next slide. Oh, let's go back to the other slide, because I forgot. That actually, the thing that really changes everything is kaho'olawe, in my humble opinion. That movement, which really only involved a few hundred Kanaka Maoli in their 20s, young people, not necessarily well educated. There were only a few of them that were even thinking about being in college. These were people who came from Molokai, from Maui, from rural areas. These folks, they changed the narrative when they decided that they were going to do this one thing. They were going to save this island. Now, I want you to think about that for a minute, because, look, there were a whole list of grievances that we had. DHHL, Hawaiian Homelands, that was a big one. Everybody was always talking about how we were messed over by that. And then, of course, they're starting to talk about language, the fact that hula almost disappeared. All of these kinds of things, our poverty, our landlessness. These were young people, and in my mind, they're looking around, and there's any one of these almost impossible kinds of things to do. We'll just do this one little thing, which means taking on the most powerful navy that the world has ever known, right? With a bunch of young people, and the only weapon that they had was their bodies and their voices. And they used their voices to talk about Aloha Aina, and they put their bodies in the way of the bombs. And they put themselves in great danger. And they won. This is the thing that people sort of forget. That they didn't just do a partial victory. They won it all. Kaho'olawe is ours today and recovering today because of what they did. And nobody else did it. The state, George Helm goes before the legislature. You know, all the guys, Henry Peters, all the guys, you know, they're holding hands, praying, singing Hawaii Aloha. But they didn't stop the bombing. Those young men and women did. So, yeah, next slide. Now, one of the things I think that Kaho'olawe taught all of us is that through organization and will and a great deal of skill, you think of the people who emerge out of PKO, Emmett and Walter, Daviana, George, and their incredible ability to persuade people. I'm talking about skills here. You know, using their voice, using their ability to sing and to persuade, using their passion and their vision, but really moving into a kind of fulfillment, to a fulfillment of this one mission, one small thing, save this island. Saving that island leads to a delegation at the 1978 Constitutional Convention made up of people who are PKO folks. And they say, hey, this is our time. Hawaiian Affairs Package. We're going to have Hawaiian language and Hawaiian studies in every public institution. We're going to have an Office of Hawaiian Affairs. That we're going to press for, you know, revenues to come from the ceded lands, to come to Native Hawaiians. And we're going to control those revenues. And we're going to decide for ourselves. We're going to elect our own trustees. We're going to decide for ourselves how to spend that money, how to strengthen our own people. No more depending on the state, like we could ever depend on. Sorry if I sound bitter, but we lived through this. Some of us who are old here, we lived through that. All of the broken promises, all of the falseness. And they said, we're gonna take care of ourselves. That's what OHA was designed to do, by the way. It wasn't designed just to receive money. It was designed to make decisions about our welfare. And we were supposed to be able to vote for them as Hawaiians. So, I want to say that at some point in all of this, there is more and more confidence in our ability to run our own affairs. It doesn't mean we don't get interference. You know, Rice versus Cayetano comes along, we get court decisions that suddenly put OHA in a different kind of place. There are all kinds of oppositions. But I have to say that from 1978 to this time here, we have never stopped moving. And we don't depend on OHA or Kumene schools or any of these other institutions alone. We employ them, we appeal to them, we are supported by them, but fundamentally, the growth of EA in Hawaii has been done by Hawaiian communities, by families, by people deciding, you know what, I want to have an immersion school here. I want to build this here. I may be running out of time. Somebody give me, because, okay, we're okay. It's us. It's us doing this. It's your friends, it's your neighbors, it's your aunt, your uncle, your grandmother, your children now who are doing this. And every time Every time we master a new kind of initiative, we gain a whole bunch of skills. And those get passed on to other people. You notice I haven't talked once about the University of Hawaii, even though I'm the dean at Hawaii Nation. I'm proud of what we do. But tonight I just want to talk about what everybody else does. Because the University of Hawaii, and Hawaii Nation included, we haven't started all of these initiatives. We have been pushed by those initiatives to provide more services, more knowledge, more opportunity, more access. So I feel that, over the last 25 years, we have seen a gradual fulfillment of some of these hopes and aspirations that were only dimly imagined in the 1960s and 1970s. Take the next one now. I know this is the weirdest. I try to work with. So Kamana is my dearest friend. He's almost like, he'd be like a brother to me, except he's so much younger. But he gives me this like PowerPoint to work with, and it doesn't work. He always does it like this. I want to talk a little bit about where these last few months, I think, have left me thinking. And I think it's time to encourage. For those of us who have been doing this work for the last 40 years, some longer, we are seeing a change in who is doing this work, and who is setting the mission, and to a certain extent, even where all of this is going. And I have to say that I am really pleased with what is happening in Hawaii at this moment. It isn't just that I have been always opposed to the 30-meter telescope. In fact, that has so little to do with this, I can't tell you. It is all of the things that I'm seeing built around that, not just that opposition, but the assertion of Hawaiian will and values into the conversation about how we use land in Hawaii. This has been the most brilliant thing I've ever seen. I went up to Ulu the first week when they were just sort of gathering there. There were maybe about 100 of us. I left after a few days, just before the arrest took place. I'm really clever that way. And then I came back a week later, and there was 1,000 people there. And the whole thing had become a city. It had become at least a small town. And it was being managed and worked on and controlled, by these young people. And that's when I knew. We've done, I'm speaking to some of the gray beards in here, we've done an amazing thing. It's time to let go. It's time to encourage. It's time to have faith and trust in the people that we have prepared to do this. 30-somethings and 40-somethings and 20-somethings. It's time to trust them. We worked really hard at this, but even I never imagined that there could be a movement like Kapualoha that would be that would essentially cripple the state's ability to hana ino us as they have so efficiently for so long. I don't know where this is going, this movement, not my talk. I don't know where this movement is going, but I have never been more confident that our people are really, really well placed for the next 25 years in terms of just having work to do. And I'm looking forward to being able to talk with Kumukamana in a few minutes, but I'm going to take even more time, like one song. I've been meaning to sing this song. It is it's a song I wrote for my grandmother, Eliza Kamakui'ole. She was born in Kukuihaere on Hawaii Island, right on the lip of Waipiko Valley. And she lived most of her life in Hilo. After she married my grandfather, let's do this one more time. When I wrote this song, it was a few years after she passed, 1983. I didn't know anything. I hadn't come back to school. I had been playing music in clubs and recording songs, all of them in English. I had no skills at all in Hawaiian, and I didn't even know much about the history of our people. Then I was still just very young. But there was one thing that I always knew, is that whenever I was out in those forests and trails of Hawaii Island, there was something that always spoke to me, always reminded me of who I was. So this song for that. Cast your eyes down the mountainside, out from the surf into the valley wide, recklessly wading through the years, solemn and silent souls have gathered here. Waipiko, where the old ways lie, the sea seems to flow unceasingly, and a thousand voices speak to me. Where the wave rushes on, mist rolls in, Hawaiian spirits live again. Far from the surge of the city we stand, hearing the pulse of our people in this land.
O nauna I ka hala me ka lehua, e hale lehua no e nata no e. Ka no ia ia no nei, e lia ni hoki o tahiti mai. A hiki mai no to, a hiki puno me te aloha, aloha e. Aloha e. Aloha e. Aloha mai kākou. It's an honor and a privilege to have a chance to be here in my alma mater, a place I deeply care about. I should clear everything up though right away. My son, number 2 born, he's 6 years old. He goes to KS Kapalama. He's in the 1st grade and he can read. So. Make sure we're all aware of that. John and I are also alumni and we can read. And this morning I debated another KS alum. His name was Makana Silva, and he can also read. So we are totally good on that front. I don't know if I should stand or sit. I think I'm going to stand for a little bit. My words won't be as profound and deep as my mentor and as John, so I probably got to do some hand motions to keep you guys interested. More hands. So I want to start with, we're going to talk about agency, and we're talking about the past and the future and who we are as a people, and what we can do to create the future Hawaii that our keiki deserve, that our grandchildren deserve, that we deserve, and that our kupuna deserve. And so for me, it starts with this beautiful woman, this amazing lady, from, this is a true story. So my uncle had no children. My dad, for whatever reason, just had me. So I was punahele by default. There was no one else for me to compete with. It was really fantastic. I'm certain if my uncle had a daughter or a son, I would have not been the punahele. But she loved me deeply. She loved me deeply, and she, taught in these really profound and kupuna kinds of ways where you don't even realize that you're being taught. She passed away when I was, I just turned 30, about 3 months before I finished my PhD. In fact, I had a full draft of my dissertation. I went to visit her in the hospital in Maui, and I said, Ano, I used to call her Ano, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna get it done. And so it was a real amazing thing to share that together. But the kind of love that our kupuna give us, that kind of embrace, if we can all kind of remember what that feels like, the love between a grandchild and a grandparent is something so special. But she also had this fierceness to her, this unwavering, uncompromising, no que no, viva ole spirit that I believe is unmatched. and that's always something that I learned from her, is to try to keep those two things close. Love deeply and be fearless in the face of injustice. And so she never said the phrase kapu aloha. I never heard that. But kapu aloha resonates so much with me in my life because that's how our kupuna were, and that's how she was. So I'm blessed to have her and to have that as a foundation for thinking about Ōiwi Agency. Maybe we can. So my grandmother, I remember this day. This was Kamehameha Day. I was about my son's age, actually. I was 6. And it was my first time going to Kamehameha Day. I had flown to Oahu. Even that was a big experience coming from the Neighbor Islands. And you know, we saw the whole parade, and afterwards we went to visit Kamanamaikalani, you know. And I remember looking up as a young boy, you know, and just seeing the stature and the grace and the height and the elevation of this mythical chief of ours. And that memory, you know, she caught it in a picture. Most of the pictures I have in my youth were taken from my grandmother, and she gave me all the photos. So she caught it in a picture, but the memory is always something that's stuck with me when we think about that Ōiwi. And I believe that, you know, looking up and seeing that stature and the way that my grandmother lived her life, and when we think about Kapu Aloha and Ōiwi Agency, we're really talking about a belief in something bigger than us. You know, all of our people for generations have been working towards something bigger than us. If the goal was to make out for me and it's done, none of us would be here tonight, because what's the sense? I have no dollars, contracts to give to you. All we have is Ike in each other, and this belief in something greater than me. As I got older, and we experiences, you know, challenges and tribulations, it never dawned on me, you know, that actually for 25 years, Kamehameha failed. He failed to unify Hawaii Island. In fact, you know, at times he lost battles. Kahikili came in, raided Waipio, kicked his butt, and that's hard for me to say because Hawaii Island is that embedded and strong. When Kamehameha was with Kalanopu earlier, and literally, if you look at the timeline, for 25 years, Kamehameha even didn't unify Hawaii Island. He was raiding Maui and coming back before he actually unified all of Hawaii Island. But when we look up at that stature, Ōiwi, right, and we see that loftiness, that Kaʻiwakīloumoku, we think of something that always was successful, that was unstoppable, unbeatable, because he was prophesied, because he lifted the Naha stone. But for 25 years, he didn't do it. You know, and I gotta imagine that, you know, what did he have around him to make him successful? You know, he had the Kona uncles, so he had a generation above him that saw something in him that guaranteed was there to get his back, to push him forward, right? To make sure he's going to be successful. But I imagine 25 years, maybe they doubted at times too, right? But when we look back on it today, we know he's the guy. He did it, right? Oia kana'i aupuni. And that's a real lesson for us to think about, is the transition, the dedication, the noke, right? The viva ole, to fail consistently for 25 years. And this wasn't the kind of failure, oh man, I lost my job, I lost my paycheck. People died, resources were exploited. These are serious things. And that's the lessons that to me we can draw from when we think in some ways about Ōiwi Agency. And so to me, these values, aloha, right? When we think about leadership from a Hawaiian perspective, we talk about malu, and this is a big deal for me. You think about leadership, you know, what do you have? You need charisma, you need ambition, right? You think at least in Western styles. But the metaphor of shade, actually, if you're an elite, you're a leader, you provide shade for the people around you. When people get in a hard time, you sacrifice yourself, whatever money you get, make them a little bit easier for them. Take some of the cracks, right? That's malu, that's powerful leadership. Opuali'i, we are all here and blessed because of Opuali'i, because of Hawaii. None of this exists without that, right? And then this value of viva ole and fearlessness. And so, to be honest, my entire life I've looked up to giants. That's what I realized. My entire life I've been striving to reach and some small way make proud the people that have come before us. And John is one of those people that I've looked up to, you know, that have mentored me and you know, I'll never totally reach that level of learning. but I can improve. I can get better. This is a true story. So I just turned 30. I had finished my PhD and I got a postdoctoral. Well, I was applying for a postdoctoral scholarship, and I thought of all the people that I would want to spend a year with and work with, who would it be? And immediately it was John. So, really surprised. We got the scholarship, and so we're going on our first retreat together back home to Hawaii Island. And so we're getting on the plane, and you know, I'm 40, almost 42 now, and I realize how little I know at 30. But you feel like you got it together, you know, at 30. You just finished a PhD, you know, I was feeling pretty accomplished. And so I'm walking on the plane, and John was on the plane before me, and so he sees me come on the plane. I have my Kaʻiwakīloumoku shirt. It was actually the Big Five. You remember that Big Five with the Ōiwi, and you know, I get whatever, my surf shorts and whatever, but I'm feeling like I'm doing good, you know. And so I get next to John, and he looks at me, and he kind of goes up and down, and he goes, you don't really care about how you dress, do you? I'm like, bro, Kaʻiwakīloumoku. He goes into this story about his family, how they shine shoes and iron shirts and be presentable, you know, and so I can improve, because look at me today. Like, if you see me now, usually I have a lot of shirt and this kind of thing. So, next slide. And so my grandmother taught me, you know, these values, viva ole, aloha, malu, right, opualii. And then I also have my dad. And dad, you know, dad's story and mine is different. Our relationship is different with me and my grandmother. But as a father today, as a father of children, I realize what it takes, the dedication a young father gives. It's pretty unreal. And so I never knew this guy. You know, a lot of people knew that guy, Tero Tavern, Beamer Brothers. I never knew that guy. You know, I only knew this guy. Blow bubbles me off my grandma's lanai when she was still working at Kanaka schools. And we blow her bubbles and we yell, "Fly, be free!" And eventually, you know, much later in our lives, you know, we shared time together on Mauna Kea, you know, and this was a big thing for my dad. You know, a lot of my dad's generation weren't sure. You know, this whole thing, a couple of telescopes, right? Science versus culture, all the things that they're battling with, their own indoctrination and occupation, the results of occupation. And to be honest, when we shared time together, I was like, oh man. And Dad just sent me a text because he couldn't be here today because they're home in Waimea. But he said he was on the Mauna last night and went through ceremony, and he ran into Juan Wilson, who's his class, well, one class above. But they were close. I'll just leave it at that. And protocol was Paul, and Dad said they both just started crying. He said he was overwhelmed, and so that's what's happening with Kapua. This reawakening all across of our people. But Dad taught me one important thing before I even thought of Ōiwi Agency and Ōiwi Optics, and it comes from this next slide. Chanson. Chanson. My dad was always saying, chanson, son. Chanson. Take a risk. Put yourself out there. Be uncomfortable. Do something that you might not succeed, but be yourself. Chanson. And so before I ever thought of Ōiwi Optics and read about agency, I understood chanson. I understood that, we have to put ourselves out there. We have to do different things. And to me, anything that I've accomplished in my life has always been about chancing them. Put yourself out there in an uncomfortable space, and something hopefully that you can do. But if you fail, like Lulu says, never cease to act because you fear you may fail. Right? And that's another part of Ōiwi Agency and what we're bringing back. Sorry, the slide is a little bit weird, I'm not sure why. So I was born, raised, bred in these islands. I'm a graduate of Kanaka schools in the fantastic year of 96. But I never saw the constitution of our people, Kumukanawai, until I was about, I think I was about 27 or 25 years old. Who in here has seen the Kumukanawai in Hawaiian before? If you could raise your hands. Yeah, so maybe that's probably maybe a fifth of us. So isn't that interesting, right? Like I learned about the United States Constitution, you know, this red carpet, there's probably tens of thousands of people that go and visit it every day. It's behind bulletproof glass, right? And here I was, I never saw our own people's constitution until I was 27. I never knew that when our elite drafted these laws, they debated them in our own language, right? They debated principles of who we were as a people. And this is another thing I never knew, that when they were discussing this and finally codifying the very first constitution of 1840, they did something incredibly Kanaka. And they expressed our relationships to Aina. So if I read this section, it says, Eia ke ano ka noho ana o nā li'i me ka ho'oponopono ana I ka Aina. O ka mea mea e kahi oia ke po'o ki au puni. So this is sort of the land tenure system and the organization of the lands. Okay, so ka mea mea e kahi oia ke po'o ki au puni. Ka mea mea the first, he's the head of the government. Nona no na Aina a pau mai Hawaii a ni'ihau. To him belong all the lands from Hawaii to Ni'ihau. It sounds pretty, okay, it's like on King, whatever, they want everything, right? But here's the special part. Here's the Kanaka part. Ole nae no no pono'i. But solely belonged to him. It wasn't truthfully just his. No na Kanaka no amenali. It also belonged to the people and to the chiefs. So just think about that. You know, I'm 27. I was just like any other Hawaiian. Yes, I was a quarterback at Kamehameha. Yes, I struggled with, you know, adversities. Yes, I had anger issues. Yes, I got into scraps at the beach, surfing, right? All the things that I think a young many young Hawaiian 20-year-olds do. But wouldn't it have made a difference in my life if I knew that our leaders crafted laws to try to protect our people, to try to preserve our rights to Aina in perpetuity? You know, the American Constitution doesn't say anywhere all the lands are owned by the whites, the blacks, and the Indians. It was very clear in the US Constitution, the only people that can own land are white males, right? And so there's something very unique about studying our history in our own language. And we created maps, right? So we go back and we look at our history, our people appropriated tools and technologies. So we created new maps. If you go look at Cook's maps that they create after the voyage of Hawaii, the names are all funky. You get Atui, Ōiwi, Oahu. There's very few actual place names. The lands look empty of people. And once our people started to make our own maps, this map was made in 1838 by an amazing Hawaiian geographer, S.P. Kalama. So once our people start making our own maps, immediately they put our own divisions on them. Right? Our own ahupua'a, our moku divisions. So they're taking technologies and they're being creative. They're creating new things, just like, you know, the pulupula today who are creating Kanaka Uber, right? And using Instagram. We're constantly evolving and utilizing the tools. So, Chancellor. So this is when I was finishing my PhD. It was in, actually just not even finishing, I was starting. In 2006, I had a fellowship then, and I had some monies to travel. And so I knew Noinoi Silva, who was a kumu of mine. She went to the US Archives, she found annexation petitions. I never heard about Hawaiian going to the British Archives. And because I was really interested in how our elite worked in the outside world, I thought, okay, I'm going to British Archives. You know, this was before you get all these apps and it's super easy to travel. You know, I figured out one place to stay and overnight, and I spent about a month there. And it took me longer to get through security than it did to find this next document that we'll pull up. So literally the first thing that I was able to find is this joint declaration of the Hawaiian Kingdom as an independent and sovereign state. It was done in November 28th, 1843, and this is a thing that made Hawaii a country. Okay? And it says very specifically, half of it is in French, half of it is in English. You guys, many of you may have seen this. It's all over social media now, and so that's another thing. You take the picture, and then 11, 12 years later, it's everywhere. It's like, wow, this is Ōiwi Agency. It's all over the place. It's awesome. But it says very specifically that Sandwich Islands, as an independent state, recognized as an independent state, can never take possession either directly or under the title of protectorate. So our people are constantly evolving and using tools and technologies for our own needs, and that's part of the story of Ōiwi Agency. While I was there, in the same trip, this one actually blew me away almost even more, because I knew that we were a country, and we saw in the newspapers that we had recognition, but just never saw the official document before. This one I didn't even know existed. So this is actually prior to the kingdom achieving recognition, right? There's a short occupation of the Hawaiian Kingdom by Admiral Paulette, and so we knew about that the elite wrote this petition off, and you hear the stories about them writing it like on Ka'ahumanu's tomb under the palace and stuff, but this is the English version, okay? And so I knew that existed. Kaikendall talked about it. Kumu John taught me about it. What I didn't know is accompanied to it was the Olelo Hawaii version, right? All the way in Kew Gardens, London. And so I sat there and I thought, wow, why would our elite send a petition, Makolelo Hawaii, Ikaina e, Hale Maupopo ana lako, Ehela. What's the point? What's the purpose, right? And it slapped me across the face is absolutely because Hawaiian is a language that is just as official and legitimate as any other language in the world. And if we're going to have international recognition and diplomacy, we're going to communicate in our mother tongue first, right? That's the kind of people and leaders that we come from. Yeah. In powerful kapualoha ways, we refuse to compromise our identity and who we are as a people. I want to tell you a story. So now, 2006, life is full of changes, things you can never predict. And I don't think I could imagine what my life would be like. And I think many of our lives are like this, right? We look back and, geez, that's 15 years ago, and where we're at today. And it's an incredible time to be alive. But I want to share, this is the story real quick about an incredible man and experience and an example of Ōiwi Agency. It's Uncle Calvin Ho, for many of us that know him. Uncle Calvin was a student of my grandmother's, and he tells stories about coming home from the Peace Corps, right, and working in Micronesia and across the Pacific, and wanting to grow our own food and plant kalo, and realizing he never had water. And then they go visit, they go other islands, and they realize, oh, nobody get water, right? And so he galvanizes alongside other incredible, the Rapoons, all these families, Uncle Walter, really all these guys, and they talk about getting the water back for our people, and so he says, my grandma kind of helped him because when he came back, he was doing hula with her, and she said, hey, nobody to make the implements, Calvin. How about you make the implements for me? And so Uncle Cal started making oheano ihu and umeke and all of these things. And so I'm up on the Mauna several weeks ago, and I walked down the road to the kupuna tent, and I see Uncle Calvin, and I happen to have my keiki there, and we get to share this time, right, where Uncle Cal's teaching my kids and telling them, oh yeah, your great grandma taught me this, and they're going, really? Okay, and I distinctly remember I was a junior here at Kapalama, Uncle Calvin came into my art history class, and we were doing an umeke assignment. And we're making the umeke, and Uncle Calvin says, we're making this umeke, and we think about our traditional society in Akupuna. And in old times, if he was one farmer, he was one farmer. If he was one warrior, he was one warrior. If he was one leader, he was one chief. Right? And all of those things were separated and different. But today, if you like be one farmer, you gotta be one warrior, and you gotta be one chief, and you gotta be one farmer. Very little from my 11th grade year do I remember. But those words in making that umeke always stuck with me. These stories of our people at Ōiwi Agency. And so many, many years later, being on the Water Commission, Uncle Johannes and others, and having a chance to restore water to our people. Restore streams that have been dead for 125 years because of the power of my little knowledge and voice, right? Because of laws and generations before me stormed the Hawaii State Constitution and created public trust law. Right? Now we have opportunities to put water back in streams. And so what I want to tell you folks, what I realize, right, is this might sound weird. We all get one chance. Yeah. My grandmother is gone, but she's still here, but she's gone. And I used to struggle with that. And I actually realized this in Hawaii. And I should acknowledge Haile and Kaliko here, and their ohana, please. It really came to me in Hawaii is that we pass and we move on, but the words of Kaulia, ahiki ke loha aina hope loa, I think what that really means, what he's saying is, there is no hope loa. Right? That we come back in Manono, right? In Kaulia, in Georgetown, in John Osorio, right? In Uncle Calvin Hall. Maybe some of the kids that are here today, And that's the power of the Lāhui, that's the power of the Ōiwi Agency, is that we will never go. And that kind of strength and resilience that pops up over and over in our stories is really incredible. We can go to the next one now. So, I used to be in this phase where everyone was like, oh, you're so young for everything you're doing. Awesome boy, PhD, yeah, you're so young. And then look at me now. Right? And so again, we all just have this short time in our lives. And some of my mentors here, look a little bit older, even though they look up. Some of them have passed on, right? And so we only have this small time and chance. And I want to say this, we have to be strategic, we have to be thoughtful, and we have to come with a couple of law. But we got a chance on it. Yeah? We have to be fearless for ourselves and our people, because there isn't a redo, right? All we got is what we can do for our generation and our time, and the next one got a hapai and uamo that kuleana for themselves. So we have to put ourselves in difficult situations, right? To risk being attacked, right? Being slandered for the betterment of Aloha Aina and our people and who we are, because that's where we come from. That's Ōiwi Agency. So we got a chance on for our future. I don't know the name of this man. I was in the archives with my students about 3 weeks ago. Some of them are in here. Okay, and we get this special tour. We go in the back of the archives, and there's a whole story behind it. I try to make it happen every year. But this was the first time the state archivist shows me. He said, oh, have you ever seen this? This is a picture. It's it was like in 1956. He's on Hawaiian. He's an electrician. He made it to the North Pole. And he packed that flag with him, right? And he made it a point for someone to take a picture in the North Pole with our high Hawaii, right? So you can cut down the high, you can saw it in half, but you cannot break the will and the commitment of a line. Right? You cannot. So we got to chance him for our future. And we got to chance him for our Aina, because that is the one thing in our lifetime that we can pass on, that we can keep for the next generation. That's the one thing. If it's degraded and it's gone, and the Navy dumps all the jet fuel in the aquifers, even if we exercise sovereignty again, practice it, and have the kingdom, if our waters are, oh, see the military jumping. If our waters are cold, we've still failed. So we got a chance for our Aina. And on that note, I need to tune up my guitar. John, can you talk a little bit while I tune it?
It's a real pleasure to listen to Kamana, because his experience and skills come from chancing so many things. One of the things that really is impressive about him now, I think, is partly the way you're dressed. I wasn't expecting this. But the other thing is, like so many Kanaka Maoli I know, Kamana is really driven by the really amazing leadership he got with his family, from a grandmother, from an aunt, for all of us. We can all think of those people. While he tunes up this song, which was written by his uncle, one of my favorite songs. I'd like us maybe to think a little bit about the family member that kept you sane all these years, kept reminding you that it wasn't crazy or a crime to want to be Hawaiian, want to be more Hawaiian, to learn the language. And we have them. And sometimes it occurs to me that sometimes they're the ones that nobody else is listening to. Just you. What else? There was a picture here, wish we could go back to it. You probably couldn't make it out, but it looked like he was surrounded by flames. That's because when he was clearing his father-in-law's taro patch in Waipio Valley, he used a damn flamethrower. He's crazy. Look at that. That's him up there. Clearing brush, with, I guess, a controlled blaze. Is that what you call it?
Yeah, flamethrower.
Yeah. Chancel. Yeah.
Chancel.
Yeah. We actually saw him doing it when we went and visited this one amazing day. And that's when I knew, I wanted to see if this man would survive the next day.
Oh, thank you. Sorry about that. It's a weird tuning in. I just changed. It's having a hard time adjusting, but so I don't sing this song as my dad or my uncle, but I do feel it. When I was away in college, my 20s, so imagine days. But and we were at Occidental together in LA. And I remember us listening to Uncle Keo's song. And when we reached the part where he says, you know, if you love her like I do, out to any land you roam, she'll be with you. If you love her like I do, every time I would get emotional. For our home and Waimea, and then we can have a chance.
My friend and I would sometimes roam the trails of Mauna Kea, and in the evening we'd come home, see her standing there. The moon moves around her when she's free. The clouds stand beside her when she sleeps. And I could be forgotten and 1,000 miles away. Still I would recall the beauty of Mauna Kea. Out to any land you go, she will be with you if you love her like I do. And I live in the city now. I see differently. In the nights when I'm alone, she's in my dream. The winds around when she sleeps. The sun spreads its across her face. And I could be forgotten and 1,000 miles away. Still I would recall the beauty of Mauna Kea. Still I would recall the beauty of Mauna Kea.
How about another huge hand? Dr. Kamanamaikalani Beamer. This is a great opportunity for questions for our panelists, for our speakers. They laid out examples of Ōiwi Agency and how it's helping us rise up as a Lāhui. And this whole AHA is called Lāhui Rising. We are here to raise our Lāhui. This is for our Opio, this is for our Keiki. And so this is an opportunity to ask questions you may have. He mauni nao kukikahi, kahale? Mani, nakawa?
First of all, I want to thank the both of you because I learned something really, really. Kumu-chan, thank you, because I was part of that Kaʻiwakīloumoku, but I never told my children or my grandchildren that, and I don't know why. But my question is, and please hear my heart, because and privileged to talk to young children and men and teenagers. And not disrespectful, but a lot of our children and young men are hurt. And so when I hear you say chancellor, I believe that. Because my mom always told us, it's good to fail and fall, but get right back up and try again. And so how do we reach them? Because they're busy trying to be somebody else when everybody wants to be just like us. And so, as you both were talking, I was sitting here praying and asking Keokua, teach me, show me how to reach them. And yet funny how one of his answers was, one of you here will reach the ones that I cannot reach. And so I'm praying that you will pray and you will ask him, who am I to reach? Because our people need us. And for the young people in the room tonight, thank you for wanting to know who we are. Because there's a lot of us, a lot of your friends that rather will be a movie star or a this or a that. But everybody comes to Hawaii because we have it all. So if we can learn how to teach that, Chancellor. A lot of us, the older ones, the dinosaurs, we were taught, Chancellor, we'll never give up. And as the generations kept moving on, we kept getting busier, homes and prices were getting higher. Mom and dad had to work 2 or 3 jobs. And so we lost some of that. But we need to understand, like the both of you said, Ohana, because without family, we may lose our aina. Because that's the only way that we retain the aina, is when the Ohana stands, one mind, one body, in one accord.
So many people are doing amazing things that are teaching and reaching children now. I mean, you see young people at Ōiwi, and they are doing this protocol, something we could not do when I was a child, something that even my oldest children couldn't do when they were children. And I think of Haile Okua's play and how many people that reached and how many children, young people were just thrilled by the sight of our people speaking our language and remembering these heroes from the 19th century.
Yeah, I think we gotta have a model for them. You know, we gotta fill them up with aloha. Plenty times when you're disengaged, when you're not finding yourself, you're struggling with something, and a lot of times that aloha to me is the key. My grandmother had deep patience. So many times I could have fallen off, but it was that to me that endless aloha that always made me realize, oh, I gotta live up to something. I cannot take this for granted. But you're right, Uncle. It's a struggle, yeah.
This side. Aloha, heihahi kako. Do you folks see a pathway to global recognition of sovereign Hawaiian people?
Yes, well, absolutely. There's so much work, and this is another thing about each of us contributing from where we're at in our own capacity and having agency and shifting the system for wherever we're at. But I deeply mahalo all the work and support of all of the groups, the things that Ikiana are doing on the international level. I support small communities that are organizing, including Uncle Bumpy guys and Brandon. And, I think we have to look at it like that. It's not an either or, it's a yes and. Every time a Hawaiian community becomes more empowered, more in control of their resources, creates mentorship and leadership in their community, we support that sovereignty, right? And I think a time will come when we will know how to govern again. We'll have so much, right now we need to, any resources that are here in Hawaii, we need to exercise our ability to get involved and to get control in decision making. And over time, what that looks like is something maybe that our world hasn't seen in a long time, but I think is incredibly powerful. A couple of aloha gets us there.
To add to that, I would say that, for years and years and years, I fought federal recognition. We fought it disgracefully with this much aloha, as we should have, because it was just our people doing a different thing. And I know that it was hard for some. Sometimes it was hard to be in the same room. And that was tough. And it made you think, will we ever feel as though we are just one people if we're squabbling over, this political future? And that's one of the reasons why what I'm seeing happening in our communities today is so incredibly gratifying. Because people are basically saying, hey, you ain't going to get federal recognition under Trump, so we don't have to worry about that. and really and truly, what is government anyway? It is governance. It is learning how to look after yourself. It is learning the skills of organizing food runs and buying, where you're going to get money, and how you're going to make sure that patrols are taking place, and organizing all of those things. That's what those things are. Just as an earlier age of our people realized that if you're going to go and oppose a project that a bunch of rich people want, you got to be organized, and you got to make sure that people come, and you have to talk to the media, and you're not going to be able to just sit back and complain. You're going to have to actually engage. It's all about government, and yes, it would be nice for other countries to recognize our sovereignty, but they did in 1843, and then again when they signed all of those treaties that we had with Belgium and everybody else. And how did that save us in 1893? It's not the rest of the world we need to worry about. It's us. It really is us.
Mahalo. Question? Aniki? We'll cross that way.
So, I know your father, because your father and my uncle were best friends. Your Uncle Pono, we lived next to each other, in fact, right there in Waimea. So this is a small world. A few people inside the picture, like my nephew Kaʻeo, Dor. But I'm the one in the family that didn't know Hawaiian out of all my siblings, although everyone else can speak the language fluently. I'm the one that didn't. I learned Japanese in school. I went to Sacred Arts. But I think that, so after this, I think the movement, because now I'm close with Lily Lau, I was close to Honani, Lily Klau's my sister-in-law. It kind of like educated me, but I'm sure there's a lot of people that are like a step behind because they don't know their own language, shall I say. But you were speaking earlier, John, that you growing after not knowing, even coming to Kamehameha School. But what I had learned is, even in Kamehameha School, because we weren't allowed to come here, my father said no for whatever reason. I wanted to come for the lunch, but that didn't happen. But he said it's because it should be for those and all Hawaiians. It shouldn't be limited to only certain ones that meet certain criteria. It's supposed to have been to the betterment of all Hawaiians for a better education. But it was limited. But as research has shown, that even in college, they limit children and or adults in learning what they specify that you can teach. So how does it where the people like me that don't know, when you're limited and there's so much grasp, because if you went back even past 1840, right? I've been reading, all the treaties together. That how do you then go back to make it all right? I mean, like, how do you do that when we have many bloods, yeah? And there's a lot of people that say, oh, look at the Hawaiians always pulling down the Hawaiians, right? And the crab syndrome or whatever, or people talking about whomever, it doesn't matter. But my answer was, oh, it's not the Hawaiian blood, it's your Chinese blood or your Japanese blood. I say that to my brother, but whatever. But so, how do we even help in the educational systems, whether it be in Kamehameha School, to open up the learning to be truthful? So it's not hidden and it's not corrupt in a certain way, for then us to have all the truth and all the facts so we can couple aloha, which is the hardest thing, because I learned not to couple aloha with haunanke, just to go be direct. But so you have to kind of like watch what you say, and that's why I really like what you did on the TV today against, when you talked about it, because wow, I would say, how come you never say this? How come you? But it was so beautiful. How do you help everyone as educators to open up the education system to be more truthful for all Hawaiians, starting from KK all the way up?
I'll just give it it's a long struggle. But it's happening at every level of education now, particularly in the DOE. So many of the people who came through our program went into teaching. It was like the first thing they wanted to do, because it was service, it gave them a job, it was something to do with their lives. And they have been changing that educational system, even as slow as it is, even as difficult it is as it is to make all of the changes we want. Do you know that we have a shortage of Hawaiian language immersion teachers, that there's a much greater demand than there are teachers to fill them? So part of the problem is that we're not doing enough at the university level to train teachers. Hawaiian language and the College of Education needs to work closer together. We are actually talking about a group of new programs that we want to start to be able to turn out certified teachers who can either teach immersion or at least be able to teach knowledgeably about our history and about our culture. But it's years and years and years of neglect, and years of opposition from people who think that anything that is Hawaiian is a reduction of academic standards. I think actually we're winning that battle. And as we change that climate at the university, I think it'd be easier for us to be able to do the nitty-gritty work that needs to be done to change education. But it's where we're going. And if you could talk a little bit about the need for changing this education, just for our own survival purposes, that would be a good thing.
Yeah. Well, you're absolutely right. I think ko mea nui makahonua, right? Kamanao i'o, kamanao lana, amekeawa. And kamanao i'o, the truth, right? I mean, that's what we have on our side as a people, is the truth of our history and who we are, and the severe, oppression and generations of injustice that we face. So we have to prepare those keiki for that. In some ways, this climate change, I think, helps us in some ways, because societies all around the world are going to have to change the way they relate to their resources and their food systems. And we still have a lot as Kanaka, as people, our understandings that other people in the world can learn from. So sometimes we might be struggling in certain areas, but if you look at the restoration of fish ponds, you look at the restoration of lo'i and streams, major Kanaka ike happening in those circles, And so, but you're absolutely right, it's, it is a long step. But I guess when I look at it, when I graduated here, there was one Kamehameha, that's it. Now we get 3 campuses. I was at an event, one of the po'okula here, for the middle school, he's talking about bringing Pacific Islands together, for the curriculum of the students, and I was blowing my mind. I was like, oh, it's a new Kamehameha, And then you look at the charter schools, I just missed immersion myself, a couple years too old. And so, never had immersion from my generation. Now we get Kulakaiaupuni, we get whole charter schools, so we've made some significant strides, but we're still looking up at the chief, right? But we can get there, yeah.
We have maybe 2 more questions.
Hi, aloha. So to hear your question, I am a Native Hawaiian teacher. The reason why I became a teacher is because 75% of our special education population represent the Native Hawaiian population. So again, I am blessed to work at a charter school. We just opened Dream House Charter School in Emma Beach. But the question that I have is I'm working on my doctorates in educational leadership for that reason, because I believe in cultural responsive teaching. So as doctors yourselves, do you believe in cultural-based teaching and not helping our haumana and our keiki to envelop in their identity, in their community, and actually, like he was saying, our men and our women being proud of who they are with all of everything going on in our society with all of this other technological stuff? Do you think that cultural-based teachings and place-based learning can help our haumana and our keiki?
Oh, that's a resounding, absolutely guaranteed, 1,000%. And we see it, every day in the charter schools, and we've seen the shifts that have happened here at Kamehameha. And that's actually what got me into researching, the Ōiwi in many ways, because I was like, how these guys went around the world, made all these relationships. Think about it for a second. You're Ōiwi Kalani. You're the same person, she writes, Christian hymns, right, when she's in prison in the palace, and she's also chanting the Kumulipo, right? She also went to the Queen's Jubilee, right, in England. You're that same person, right? She's debating genealogies, like, and so that's really what fascinated me, was like, wow, like, how did they see themselves? How did they have that kind of strength, resolve, to be able to engage the outside world with no fear, And I think cultural-based education is that vehicle for us, because of the indoctrination that we faced for the last 126 years, because of the occupation, stripping of our national lands and culture and language. We can get back to it with this.
So I can't teach place-based education because I can't grow a damn thing. I can't fish. I can't take my students out and say, that is that planet and that is that planet. This is how they're related. I'm really, really ignorant. But the class I still teach is a class on music. And I teach the music of Hakumele from the time that how we arrived until the present. The way our music changes, the way it reflects what's happening in society. And the way I teach this as a culture-based thing is I just make them listen to a lot of music. And that's what we do. We listen to 4, 5, 6 pieces every single day. I think this is one of the things that's really happening in our schools, is that all of our teachers are saying, we were taught a certain way and it made us sad. It didn't educate us. It turned us away from school. We're not ever going to be those kinds of teachers.
Final question.
O kau aia he nina o he hokomaikai mahalo nui a olua no ka noho ana I mua o kia hubi a pōpō maila I kia hiahi. Maki ana wau o leo mahalo nui a oe ku'uluna ka haku o komako kula ka dini hoi ai kia lima mama ke kaumaha ai nolila mahalo nui a oe no komo makahiki he kana lima e au amo ana e ho'omalae ana i ke ala no mako e hele ai nolila me oe ku komako mahalo i kia iai. No kumea, nao no i waile i kia ala. Nao me koupo e ma kou hanauna i waile i kia ala. I loa ai o kamana, e no o puana me oe kia iai. I luna o keia kapua e o lelo ai kia iai. Malo i au ko e leana ma, papahana e kūnei, kuai kia hale o Kaʻiwakīloumoku, nāne ho'olau kai kia papahana o kākou, kōkua i ke kaiauru. Ho'olono kia mau leo, kia mau ualo ana o ke aloha aina i mua o mako. Ko hele loa ana e kamana, hele loa ana hiki i lopa, i ke ina palapala e waihoana ma leila ho'o mā lama maluna o ke ki'i a laha i mua o ka lehu. Mārunu ia oe ko hele ana. No ka mea he hele mamao ana ke laha alele oe ko one anau a hoi mai. Oia ka mea nui o ka hoi mai. No nā manao no ke ia hia i no ka ho'o lawe pololei. Ki ana kala nei noho nei ma koa ao e ke kahi o nā koa mua. Hele mua i ka ho'o lawe, mahalo nui nā koa mua. Maha ui ka poe nāna i kako lana kilo to o lawe a iki ki ia la. E like hoi me ka lana kila ana o kako maluna o mauna kea. Ai, no leila, a oia mau lana kila ana ka mea e ea i kako. Ui na ana o ke ea, ua nani ko manao no ia mea o ke ea. O ke ea oia ke ana o kako. Oia ko kako ho'o lako ana i ka ai i luna o mauna kea. Ka ho'o noho ana i nā ano mea e olai Kanaka i luna maunaki. I luna o pu'u hoi. A kūkulu ka mea ke kula malila e a o ho'o na awao ai. Na Kanaka malila. Na kaukani, ka lehu o ana. No leila, nui ko mako mahalo i ka olua i waiho ai i mua o mako. No ko mako mau pepea e a apo ai i ke ai. No reila, no hau manao e la wau i ke mele kumulale ma mea ma hilo. Wao Hawaii ke o lino mai nei. No reila, mamuli o ka olua hana, ka kako hana hoi, wao Hawaii ke o lino mai nei. Aloha.
Oh, we're coming now,
As we have our ohana here, we wanted to present the high o ke aupuni Hawaii Ka hae ho'okumu ia e Kamehameha e kahi. Ka makahiki umikumawalu umikumono. The Hawaiian Kingdom flag that was established by Kamehameha e kahi as a makana to each of them. My son, ke aloha aina to present to each other. This is the flag of Kamehameha e kahi, and being in the hale of Kamehameha, and this is the Hawaiian flag. Not even gonna mention. This is our Hai Hawaii. Ka hai ho'ailona ia o ka holomua, ka maluhia, ka lokahi a miki aloha. He leo mahalo ke ia ia o lua. No ka pai o mau ana, ka ho'ona o ao, ka ike Hawaii o ka Lāhui. Ka ho'ona o ao ani ko kako mau kamaiki, me ke aloha pau o leo ka aina. He leo mahalo ke ia ia o lua. E Hawaii e